So yeah, my name is Kristina Sickles. I am the Development and Communications Director for Grid Alternatives Colorado. Grid Alternatives is actually a national organization now that was founded in California with a couple of really cool physical engineers back in 2004. So quick show of hands, have any of you heard of us before?
Right.
Why am I here? Awesome. Well, I guess what I'll do is I'll try and keep the actual presentation of the Grid short, because I'd love to be able to talk to you guys a little bit more about what's really happening on the ground here in Colorado and what we're doing and why it is and in some cases is not working. But yeah, Grid Alternatives is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we basically provide renewable energy technology and job training, hands-on experience, and access to underserved communities. So we work primarily with folks that qualify as low to moderate income. The really technical term is 80% area median income or below, though a vast majority of Grid's clients actually rest at 50% AMI or lower. So we are really working with individuals who are hardest hit by volatile energy costs. These are households that tend to spend 2 to 4 times more than your average middle-income American household on utility bills. And in a lot of cases, we end up with things like utility cutoffs. Some people are actually left to leave their homes. They default on their mortgages. Their children have some malnutrition issues because when you can't pay your bills, you can't cover the rest of your family's needs. So we have generally a triple bottom line impact. The people that we work with, who we love, the families that we are trying to help get to a more financially stable state. Our planet impacts naturally. We are installing solar, and so we're helping people get off of carbon reliance, hopefully through a rooftop model that has a direct impact on their bills and their usage, but also in working other models, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and employment. So. Grid works in a barn-raising model. We really bring a community together. We bring the families that we're working with together onto installation projects. So you could come out and volunteer with us on any sites, working in the construction aspects of, basically start to finish a solar installation. And we do commercial installs, we do community solar, ground mount solar arrays. We just finished a really cool ballasted system out in Empire. And then we also do rooftop residential, which has kind of just been the groundswell of where Grid started in California. So I guess, it doesn't really need to be said that the people that we are working with are highest impacted by utility bill costs. And people ask us a lot, right? Like, why not food? Why not just give people money if that's the problem? But I cannot express to you the empowerment. Michael, you were just talking about it, seeing a family having received solar energy. It's not just about reducing the bill cost to a family. It's really about empowering a group of people that have been generally left out of the renewable energy conversation. These are a lot of folks that, quite frankly, have been highest impacted by climate change, but as well as by environmental impacts. Like if you look at Elaria, Swansea, Globeville neighborhoods out here in Denver that are right there along the I-70 corridor, tons of factories, lots of really bad junk going into the air and being taken in by the families that have been living there for generations. So it's not just about economic self-sufficiency, it's about environmental justice, it's about bringing people into a conversation that they deserve to be a part of. And I love that part of it. It's all about getting people to understand that solar is accessible and how they can be empowered by that and help champion that conversation in their own communities. So this is a community in California called Templeton. It is a built from scratch community. Basically, every neighbor in this community helped to build their neighbor's house. I call this a solar factory. And basically, I wasn't actually there, but I've heard stories from our founders. It's like house number 1 didn't get their roof on until house number 2 had their walls up. And then when everything was said and done, and the roofs were all up and ready to go, and all the houses had been connected to the grid, we worked with the whole community to throw solar up there. And they were, I can't even begin to tell you, like, people are so grateful and they're so into the access, the education part of what we're saying. You know, when we go to a family, we go through a kind of energy efficiency and weatherization walkthrough. We oftentimes do referrals to weatherization agencies to get that exponential impact of reducing energy need and use. And people listen, right? It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm signing my name at the bottom of this form. I listen to you talk to me about using CFLs or LEDs and power strips to reduce my loads, but they're actually listening. They actually pay attention. And so we've seen and experienced behavioral shifts when working with families. And that's actually really important, you know, taking power literally into your own hands is a really big deal from one house to another, one family to another in GRID's case as well. And like I said, we also do workforce development. And so when you see us out on a project, you see us out there with like a team of folks. And these are not all certified installers. These are folks that are from the community. Oftentimes, the families that we're working with come out on a site with us to participate in sweat equity as kind of like a payback for their system. We also work with folks like Ecotech Institute, which great school. They got a great, you know, program. They get people into the renewable energy, but their hands-on experience is a shed in the parking lot. It's not really the same. And so GRID's been working with Ecotech for a couple of years to get those students out onto actual sites, working under an actual licensed certified instructor and supervisor to install solar. And so that's really exciting. The other angle that I particularly love is that GRID really has kind of gotten into working more and more with multifamily affordable housing developers and bringing solar under the President's mandate of Renew 300 to get 300 megawatts of solar onto federally subsidized housing, for those of you that don't know. We've actually worked with affordable housing residents in providing them this kind of energy efficiency, renewable energy education and impact, not only for them as individuals, but also for you know, the development where they live and how they can help that process. And we teach them about how to break into the solar industry. And if they're interested, they come out on site with us. They get access to the hands-on training that the National Solar Foundation has said is the #1 thing that solar employers are looking for on somebody's resume before they hire them in for a pretty decent paying job. So it's a big part about what we do. A lot of our national funding partnerships are really hedged on this idea that we are bringing an industry, again, to a community that would not otherwise have access, and give them hope and access to jobs, training, you know, workshops, study groups, everything that we can do to support these folks getting into an industry that will continue to grow, hopefully, over the years to come. So GRID's accomplishments to date, we've installed about 26 megawatts of solar, which, you know, in the scheme of big, you know, utility scale solar is not enormous. It's about offsetting a small coal factory. But we've done it, and we've done it in a barn raising model, and we've done it with philanthropy, and we've done it with donated equipment, and we've done it with volunteers over the years, and we've started a movement. A conversation where LMI solar access is not like a what? Why would we do solar access for LMI? It's like a, oh yeah, we need to bring this to a national policy forum. We need to bring this to a local policy forum. There are real impacts, and GRID's got a real brand that's growing pretty quickly. So, you know, we've done about $180 million in savings for our families. We've worked with 20,000 plus volunteers and job trainees and projects for, you know, the last 12 years. And about 2 years ago, we were acknowledged by the White House as a champion of change. And we continue to work with the White House in various press releases through the National Community Solar Partnership. I was just talking about this bill that was brought up by Bernie Sanders about 1.5 years ago called LISA, Low Income Solar Act, which we hope will rear its head again after the very successful election that will happen later this year. And you know, one of the more interesting developments that GRID's kind of gotten into is not only breaking out of the loving arms of the California Solar Initiative when they launched our Colorado office, but we've also broken out to the East Coast in New York, Washington, D.C., 2 years ago, started an office in Nicaragua, and just earlier this year, we launched our second international program in Nepal. So for those of you that love voluntourism, I brought some postcards for our international program, and we'd love to have you fundraise and come install solar with us somewhere else. So the full solar affordable housing program, I mentioned this already. The cornerstone of what GRID has done since we launched our program in 2004 is residential rooftop solar. Grid tied, retail bill credits for those, for all that electricity that's shoved off to the grid and not used on site. We found that this was the most efficient way to deliver high impact for the families that we're working with. However, when we came to Colorado in 2012, we found that the Colorado market was not as loving as it was in California. And so we had to do things, much like other solar developers and solar companies, to make our production more efficient and still have a high impact. So we started working with community solar. We actually went on a statewide listening campaign, talking to the Colorado Energy Office, municipal utilities, cooperative utilities throughout the state of Colorado to say, well, you don't love our rooftop residential, oh, bless you. You don't love our rooftop residential philanthropy program, but what would you like? And the resounding response was community solar. In, May of 2015, just last year, we worked in direct partnership with Grand Valley Power, which is out in Mesa County, Grand Junction area, to put together what was announced and recognized as the country's first utility-owned low-income community solar array. It was a small system at that time. It was 29 kilowatts. It was a pilot. We got 7 families signed up. And we're basically able to realize for those families 50% cost reduction on their utility bills for the first 5 years. We were recognized by Congressman Jared Polis. We were invited to Washington, D.C. to do a briefing for their energy committee. It was a really phenomenal model that got noticed. So for those of you that pay attention to the Colorado Energy Office, they put out an RFP later that year looking for an experienced low-income community solar installer to go out across the state of Colorado and develop a megawatt of community solar to impact a minimum of 300 families and to hit a minimum goal of 50% cost reduction on those bills to help levelize essentially the disparity of energy burden costs between a low-income family and a moderate to high-income American family. And we won. $1.2 million grant from the Energy Office to go out there and deliver community solar. So we are out there now. We just finished a 21 kilowatt community solar array with Empire Electric down in Cortez. We'll be out there with the highly reputed Delta Montrose Electric Association later next month. And as opposed to just working within Xcel Energy, we've really gotten to a point where we're developing very good, solid relationships with utilities directly by working in these areas throughout the Western Slope and throughout Colorado. And then there's the multifamily stuff. I mentioned 300 Renew. So we've been working directly with affordable housing developers. Do you guys know NeighborWorks America? No? It's a big umbrella nonprofit organization that has affiliates all over the country, and they develop tremendous amounts of affordable housing. We actually, Grid Colorado, installed Grid Alternatives as an organization, the largest project installed to date by Grid Alternatives, an 80 kilowatt solar array out in Fort Morgan with CRHDC. It was a really great project called Sol Naciente that's going to house 50 families that are pretty much all refugees, folks working in the agriculture industry. And their program developer at CRHDC smiled at me and she said, because of what you guys are doing, because you worked with us to bring down the cost, because you're bringing your partners on board, I'm going to be able to put air conditioning in my building. Right? And that might sound like a luxury to all of you, but if you're out there in Fort Morgan and you're working 105 degrees under the hot sun in the middle of a Colorado summer, that air conditioning is going to help to keep your family together, quite frankly. It's a mental sanity amenity, believe you me. So talking about volunteering, we'd love to have an opportunity to engage with CRES. We've engaged with other affiliates. to invite you guys to come join us sometime. I mean, come do a site tour. Come get your hands on some modules and some microinverters or string commercial inverters. You know, how do we wire it up? How do we monitor the systems? You know, really getting access to the software and the technology. I can't say it enough. We love to get community behind our projects, and my favorite new saying is that we really like to bring the community into community solar, because that's what we're doing out there in the western slope of Colorado. We are bringing together high schools. We're working directly with Solar Energy International. We're working with families that have been destitute because of coal shutdowns, people that have been out of work for years, and highly, highly affected by the oil and gas industry in Colorado. And we're hopefully giving them hope, and we'd love to do it with more people on our RECs. So talk to me about volunteer opportunities. We'd love to have you out. And that's kind of all I was going to say while standing up here in front of you, but I'd love to get questions about how our work is really coming together. So.